what we've seen out of this. This is a performance-proven core. We've seen this. Now, when we went to the nucleus 2, the idea was I wanted to raise the RG just slightly because we wanted to just barely get through the front. So if it doesn't use too much energy in the front part of the lane, we see a little bit more motion at the brake point. But I brought the diff down just slightly so that it didn't spin itself out all at one time, because sometimes too much differential can make it get a little too much motion when it does read friction. And then that mass bias split of 21 definitely lets us define the brake point or the shape by placement of the mass bias. Okay? We definitely see a sharper motion out of that. So that's the differences in the two cores. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so when we went to the Mutant as far as cover stock wise and the rest of the tech data, we noticed we finished it at 2,000 grit Abralon, flare potential a little over 7 inches, designed for a little bit more heavy oil. We did put the cytoplasmic XL solid reactive. The cover stock we use on the Rogue cell, minus the one side with pearl in it. It is a 100% solid reactive, finished at 2,000 grit. Same grit, same finish as the original cell, but with the newer cover stock, which gives us a little bit more texture, RA value. We'll talk about that here in a little while. But something that's a little bit stronger, okay? We'll let you see through it the first time, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. So what we see is, guys understand a 4x4 by 1.5. Everybody understand a 4x4 by 1.5. 4-inch pin to PAP, 4-inch mass bias to PAP, and then a 1.5-inch pin buffer. This is the pin distance from the vertical axis line. In terms of a dual angle drilling, it would be a short second. Notice it's a strong layout, 4x4 by 1.5. That's nice about having Randy. He's kind of he's still a player that creates a lot of rotation. Randy relates a little bit more because he's a little higher rev rate, but he still stopped it right there. What you're going to notice, guys, is what we did was I put 3 pieces of tape on this ball. And we put a piece of tape on the initial axis point. Okay? So put tape on the initial axis point, and then a point as it comes out of the oil line. We're following this axis migration out of the oil line, and then a final piece of tape on the final PSA as it goes through the pin deck. Now in this ball, you'll notice that these 3 pieces of tape, notice this one here, this is actually in the second transition. So it's come off of its original PAP, coming down, it's hit the second transition, coming out of the oil. Now with a short buffer and a strong asymmetrical ball, this last move is very defined. It gets to that final PSA very quickly because that last buffer distance tells us how quick it's going to make that second transition. So if you watch, you can see it's very defined, and it comes off of this, makes a very sharp move. I mean, the ball finishes through the 8. Same exact layout. Remember, once again, we talked about the predictability of a cell, the smooth motion of a cell, the continuous roll. We'll watch this one in action as well. One of the biggest reasons of the success of this ball, we knew what it was going to do. Now, once again, we notice these pieces of tape, 1, 2, and 3. It's in the second transition. It's going to get to the last one. Now, this last one does it a little bit slower. If you notice, if you watch it, just let it go through. Still makes a defined move, but not quite as sharp. So something that we know and I had great success out of the original cell because it was very predictable, knowing that it was going to keep continuing to roll, make these transitions, and just make them very continuously. The Mutant cell in this change to the nucleus 2 core makes this transition much quicker. Okay? But the neat thing about these cores, no matter what, is how you tilt them. Once again, and this keeps that moment of inertia or that coefficient of restitution lower, so we keep the pins more through the deck instead of going up in the air. Been very, very famous for the cell is the way it hits.